Despite the very short trailer for Tides of Torment, there is a lot of speculation and potentially close predictions we can make on what to expect from Sayl the Faithless and his Dolgan Norscan faction. In this breakdown and analysis video, I will give my predictions and hopes of what I would want to see for the upcoming DLC based on the trailer for Sayl, his lore and backstory from Warhammer Fantasy, especially his relationship to Tamarcon in the Throne of Chaos storyline, and also from one of my favorite mods from the Steam Workshop SCM's Tribes of the North, which unofficially makes Sayl a legendary lord with his own faction effects. Now, as a side note, this is just my speculation, so I do understand that some or even most of them may be wrong upon the actual release date of the DLC release. And with that being said, please do let me know in the comments your personal predictions and especially what all of you would like to see for Tides of Torment. Also, please do correct me on any inaccuracies for Sayl, as that kind of feedback will help me understand the character and the overall lore of Warhammer better. At the end of the day, it is the in-depth discussions I love having with all of you in the community on things you love about Warhammer 3 and especially ways it can be improved, whether it's just generic improvements and being objective that way or your personal wants. With that aside, let's get into the breakdown. So the trailer itself showcases Sayl as an apprentice to another sorcerer who he outright betrays in the middle of a ritual with two other apprentices, and zooming in on the bottom right corner you can see the symbol for Chaos Undivided, which is a reference to Sayl's backstory of quote-unquote not being totally dedicated to any one chaos god, but also leans into his story of backstabbing his former allies. Now, funny side note here is, ironically, even though Sayl is technically Chaos Undivided, his scheming, betrayals, and of course the use of magic, in my personal opinion, ties him more in line with being a Tzeentch worshipper, especially with his mutations that we will talk about very soon. With being a powerful sorcerer, it would make a lot of sense if Sayl had a lore trait where he steals a percentage of experience points from Norscan sorcerer lords the player recruits, or even the hero units of shamans and Famir Balefiends. Now, of course, there's pros and cons to this kind of trait, as it would incentivize all of us players to quickly level up Sayl by speed recruiting those spellcaster lords and heroes in our campaigns, but in a sense it could potentially hinder our progress if we wanted to build those secondary or third armies. Now, on second hand, maybe Sayl himself could bring some good things for your armies and fellow sorcerers, like increasing the winds of magic for your armies, or even decreasing the winds of magic for enemy armies, or an even more wild and devastating debuff Sayl could cause to enemy sorcerer lords and heroes is significantly increasing miscast chances when they cast any spell, which could backfire and injure them to the point of even causing minor area of effect explosions to kill off surrounding enemy troops. Now, all of that does sound very excessive and overpowered, although it's very much something Sayl himself would probably do in the lore and get a good laugh out of. Speaking of miscasts, the disruption Sayl causes to his former master and fellow apprentices fuses them together into a horrible chaos spawn that Sayl names Nightmaw. Now, the developers and the Total War Warhammer wiki states that Nightmaw will be a summoned hero for Sayl, and the immediate comparison myself and others will probably make is this is essentially Sayl's version of Krell, and will more likely be utilized in battle, very similar to how Heinrich Kemmler uses Krell. Specifically, Nightmaw should be a permanent summon that doesn't degrade or have a time limit, and can either be used as a bodyguard for Sayl in case enemy lords and heroes get past your front lines, or Sayl could have that extra devious streak and use Nightmaw to cause havoc in enemy backlines, tearing apart ranged units and artillery, or even use to hunt down and kill enemy lords in a 1v1 if the odds are favorable. Now, this information that I'm about to read is from the official Warhammer Fantasy wiki and later goes into his relationship with Tamarcon. Although victorious, Sayl was not untouched by his treachery in the ritual, as his flesh mutated and his mortal sight was removed, only to be replaced with the hellish and maddening senses of the realm of chaos. Hated and feared by his own people, Sayl the Faithless was nevertheless a strong war leader whose mastery over the unholy storms of the northern chaos wastes and prophetic seercraft made the Dolgan tribe under his sway greatly feared. Now, the Dolgans themselves are in the northeast western part of the Chaos Wastes and are officially in-game as a minor Norscan faction, so this is going to be interesting if his start position is actually in that area. However, as his reign stretched into the scores of years, the list of Sayl's enemies, both mortal and demon, grew, and Sayl's throne was ever threatened. When the burgeoning horde of the champion of Nurgle, Tamarkon, crashed through the Dolgan's lands, Sayl shrewdly turned impending calamity to his advantage and allied his forces with those of the Nurglish Chaos Lord. At least they would remain allies as long as such a relationship suited Sayl's purposes. Now, I do want to take a pause here because the developers did say officially there will be some kind of treachery mechanic that Sayl will have. Now, the exact details they did not disclose to us. However, I have a feeling that it's gonna be very similar to Golg's mercenary mechanic of, let's say, having a contract or some kind of alliance with Tamarkon, but then maybe having a dilemma or dialogue option down the line to outright betray him and take over his settlements somehow. Again, this is all just mere speculation. Do let me know in the comments what your personal thoughts and hopes would be for a treachery mechanic for Sayl. Maybe the treachery mechanic could be the Chaos Gods whispering to Sayl to launch a surprise attack on your allies in a given amount of turns. However, I really don't see this working out with Khorne in particular, as despite being a blood-raging god, Khorne is in some ways honorable and would hate every fiber of Sayl's being and personality for that matter. Now, without telling the whole story of the Throne of Chaos, minor spoilers ahead, Tamarkon's journey is a little bit rocky as Sayl does everything in his power to undermine Tamarkon's warband efforts, even going so far as to sacrifice parts of Tamarkon's armies in battle like he did with a horde of beastmen in an assault on the Cathayan Great Bastion, while also leaving his own loyal personal Chaos Warriors in reserve. And maybe we could have some kind of dialogue option or dilemma like that when it comes to the treachery mechanic. Just even small details like undermining your allies in that sense and gaining rewards. Now, taking a look at Sayl's Wargear from the wiki, his trailer does show his Viperous staff, which in-game could cause the poison debuff or maybe even have an additional damage over time effect on enemies on top of slowing them down. This would allow Sayl to outrun enemy lords in one-on-one combat while they are slowed down for Nightmaw to swoop in and cut them off. And Shalkane's Teeth will be an interesting item for players to use, as the wiki states should his magic go awry, Sayl may hurl a handful of the teeth as part of a treacherous curse against an ally to divert the wrath of the winds of magic. So maybe this could be a way to mitigate miscast chances on Sayl, or if the developers wanted to take it further, Sayl could activate this item for a duration of time, and this could reflect magic damage back on enemy spellcasters. Switching over to SCM's Tribes of the North, we can see that this is as close of a representation that the mod authors could get to Sayl, and a lot of these faction effects and lord effects I personally think are very lore friendly or are a good reference to Sayl's personality and character. With the first one being Deceiver, generic lords defeated by Sayl the Faithless may be deceived. Following a second defeat against Sayl, they will morph into a chaos spawn and die permanently. So yeah, a huge copy and paste from Bellacor's Demon Prince mechanic, but nothing that I'm upset about, and personally I really like this reference to Sayl's character. Now, it does kind of suck that the chaos spawn doesn't turn into some kind of Nightmaw or Chaos generic lord that will fight under Sayl. That would be a nice little bonus, but also albeit a little bit overpowered, and of course just being a more blatant copy and paste from Bellacor. But nonetheless, this is the kind of faction effect that I like for flavor purposes. Trickster, Sayl tricks even the Chaos Gods by bartering a earn favor for powerful mortal marked units. And yeah, you do gain those unique mortal marked units as types of regiments of renown, which I really like in terms of having some kind of incentive or reward to have that sort of treachery mechanic. I think this is going to be something, or I hope that this is something that the official game release will give to us. All regions owned by factions that you have trade agreements with are visible, kind of similar to the High Elves and Cathayan caravans, well, specifically when you have those trade agreements, being able to see parts of the map and tracking potential enemy movements. Enemy Winds of Magic Power Reserve, -3 per turn, enemy armies in your regions. Now, this goes back to what I was saying earlier in the video, where I think it would be pretty cool if Sayl actually was able to manipulate the Winds of Magic. Again, very Tzeentchian, and as you can see with his design here with his mutations, also very much in line with Tzeentch himself. In fact, I don't want to dive too much into this, even though he is Chaos Undivided. A lot of his traits and personality really tie into what a Tzeentch worshipper would be, and having the ability to turn the Winds of Magic in your favor, even though it's just a -3 per turn, can really stack up and really get the ball rolling for you. Charge bonus plus 15% for mammoth units, all armies. You can see with his starting army you do get mammoths, and eventually later on as you level him, you do get access to a War Mammoth mount, which I really hope for the official DLC release that it's specifically a War Mammoth Shrine mount. Now, having that extra area of effect buffs for all of your troops as Sayl just mucking around on the battlefield, that would play really well into him just having the time of his life causing havoc, and not to mention Nightmaw by his side too, just tearing apart enemies who somehow do get close or are able to potentially do extra damage to him and his War Mammoth. Now, for Sayl's specific Lord effects, steal 15% of the experience earned by other lords. Now, it does say other lords, so this could include chieftains too, but like what I was saying as well, with my specific want, I want this to be able to steal a percentage of the experience from your sorcerer lords and shaman heroes, and potentially even the Famir spellcasters as well, just because of the fact that Sayl himself would really much be the kind of person to just take and siphon as much power from his underlings and apprentices, very much like a Palpatine if you think about it. Winds of Magic Power Reserve, capacity +2 for each confederated Norscan tribe. Now, I do like that incentive as well for the players to go out and be aggressive with confederating and defeating leaders of other Norscan tribes in battle and taking them under your wing. Very much something that I like, even though it is just a minor +2. And last but definitely not least, Nightmaw. The unit ability Nightmaw spawns at the start of a battle. Now, I'm not going to complain too much about this, just because, well, the mod authors themselves added Nightmaw to the game, and actually his design is pretty lore accurate too, which we'll see very soon. Having the ability to summon Nightmaw on a whim, as in Sayl being able to summon him not at the start of battle, but let's say charging into the middle of a fray of enemies, and then being close enough to spawn him right when the artillery or range units are about to fire on you. That would be the kind of strategy I would like to see, but again, that's just a little side note from me, not a major complaint. Just having Nightmaw available to us in this mod is something that I absolutely love a lot. Alright, fast forwarding to the battle map, we can see in the bottom right corner that a lot of his spells really focus around the Lore of Shadows, which pretty much is lore accurate in terms of his deceitful nature, but we do have a few spells here that are Lore of Heavens. I guess you could say Uranus Thunderbolt is trailer accurate with his lightning based ability that he used on his master and also apprentice colleagues. But also, let's take a look at some of his abilities here. Shlakhan's Teeth. Now, this causes damage to him, but also augments the Winds of Magic. Trader's Mist makes himself unspottable, gives him stalk, and also gives physical resistance to allies. This is going to be really useful for Nightmaw in order to give him that tanking potential. Vile Skull. Now, with this one, range 20 increased 20% and base missile damage increased 20%. The Vile Skull Please do let me know, longtime fans, in the comments what specifically that skull does in the lore for him, and also what its abilities are. I do want to know if this is as close to lore accurate as possible for Sayl. Just a minor note as well, the mod authors did give him special magic ammunition, which is very devastating, as you can see with the missile strength, albeit the ammunition itself, it's not really that high. But as we start the battle here, you can see that Nightmaw spawns instantaneously. Now, let's take a look at his model here as well. Absolutely love the design. Very much in tune, or as we'll probably get as close as accurate to this kind of model as possible. The model itself in the trailer is a little bit of a more light tan skin color, but nonetheless, both designs are cursed and terrifying as hell. With this battle showcase, we are just fighting against generic Empire units. Nightmaw himself, I have a feeling that he's going to play a very similar role to Skyla and Fingram in terms of that legendary hero that is going to be really good at disrupting enemy infantry, tearing apart backlines, and also being able to hold his own against monster units and single entities like generals. As we can see here, the combination of both Nightmaw and Sayl on the battlefield has an insane amount of devastating potential and plays hand in hand together, with Sayl being able to wipe out massive hordes of infantry and Nightmaw gunning for enemy generals that threaten his master. Wrapping up here, please do let me know if you agree or disagree with my speculations, and what more would you like to see in terms of Sayl as a legendary lord for the DLC. But more of a broad question, what reworks would you love to see for Norsca to really make them stand out as a race rather than just being labeled as Chaos Light? And regardless if you are a new or returning viewer, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you for listening to my speculations, and I'd love to have you join our warband for more adventures. Until then, take care and have a good day, my friends.